Okay, let's move on to a discussion of how to plan your closing argument. And I would suggest that there are 5 things related to creating a persuasive story. You want your story, as I said, to be the most creative, the most persuasive, the most in-touch communication with the jury that you can possibly muster in your preparation. And there are 5 elements to creating a persuasive story. Those are briefly, first, that it explains all the known facts. Second, that it's told about people who have reasons for their actions. Third, that it's told by credible witnesses or believable witnesses. Fourth, that it is supported by details. And fifth, that it accords with common sense, that it makes sense. Let's talk about each of those elements, those aspects of a persuasive story in turn. Again, dealing with all the facts told by people who have reasons for their action, who are credible, supported by details, and that it makes common sense. These are essentially the what, why, who, and how of your story. First of all, known facts. What happened in the case? Use all of the facts of the case, or at least account for all of the facts. For example, we don't want to hide facts. We're not going to pick facts out of the case and just hide them from the jury. If we do that, the other side, the other attorney, is going to jump all over us. You need to bring out the facts in detail in your case and account for them. The jury will expect you to account for the facts, even the facts that represent a weakness in your case. For example, in the firefighter case, the defendant has to explain why the defendant was in a hurry that morning, why that's irrelevant. He has to explain why that's irrelevant. The explanation could be that it is irrelevant because the plaintiff stopped or parked in the middle of the road and there was no siren. Okay, so in other words, he would say, sure, my client was in a hurry. He had an appointment. He had a long way to go, but none of that mattered because the plaintiff stopped in the middle of the road. So that's an example of how you could explain what happened. The second aspect of a persuasive story is that it is about people who have reasons for their actions. You know, I love my job so much. I love being a judge. One of the reasons I love it is that I come into contact with so many people. I have this constant, this endless stream of human beings coming before me, and each of them has a story. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy hearing their stories. I actually enjoy talking with prisoners. I have each week probably a dozen or more prisoners who are brought here into this room to see me, and other prisoners that I see by video from different jails or prisons around the area. Each of these prisoners has a reason for their actions. In some sense, what they have done makes sense, is logical to them. It makes sense. In a good closing argument, you need to bring out real people and the reasons why they act why they do. There's also a who aspect to the persuasive story. The story has to be told by credible witnesses, witnesses who can be believed. This is something that you should always address in your closing, the credibility of witnesses. Are they believable? Should we not believe them? Did witnesses have a good memory? Were they consistent? Did they lie on other occasions? Were they in a position where they could observe what was transpiring in the case, and so on? So always address credibility or believability of witnesses. Supportive details. How can we be sure? I would say that the clustering or the bringing together of supportive details is one of the strongest aspects of your case. That is how we can be sure. You accumulate details. You essentially marshal details. You bring them together. You gather them together. For example, in our exercise with the cards, you want to bring together all of the facts that support your case. From the prosecution's or the plaintiff's standpoint, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at the facts. The defendant was in a hurry that morning. He was running late. He had an important meeting, a meeting which was important for his business. He discovered that there was no parking space near his building. He had a 10-minute walk from his, or 5 or 10-minute walk from his parking place to the building. And finally, he was so concerned about his business that he placed a phone call to his office immediately after the accident instead of attending to the damage and the accident itself. Those facts accumulated together show that he was in a hurry. Okay, he was not watching what he was doing. So marshal your facts. Use details when important facts are in dispute, when motivations are in dispute, to support an interpretation of evidence. You cluster or bring together facts. Do not use details for unimportant reasons. Every time you use an unimportant detail, you diminish the effectiveness of those that follow. So be very careful how you use unimportant details. And do not use details to establish uncontested facts. Simply rest on the uncontested facts. Finally, a persuasive story must make common sense. If it's just totally supported by evidence, it will not be accepted by the jury. Even if it's supported by the evidence, it won't be accepted unless it makes sense to the jury. Common sense is a sense of rightness that transcends race, gender, national origin, international boundaries. We all have a sense as to what is right, what is correct, what makes sense, and your story must make sense to the jury.